time is 6:30. We'll call the meeting to order and have roll call, please.
Dyke,
Present.
Walker,
Here.
Frisbee,
Here.
Maycumber,
Here.
Winnering.
Here.
All present and accounted for. Agenda item 1, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
I have one correction to remove item 26D from the consent agenda and place it to 24B right before the financial report.
Any other changes? Is there that's a motion?
Yeah, move to approve with that correction.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as corrected. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Winnering,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes. Motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 2 is to welcome the visitors for public comment. As we begin our agenda tonight, I'll explain our process for public comment. The board will hear comments from the public in conjunction with each agenda item using a structured process. As board president, I will ask for comments when we reach that item on the agenda. You will be asked to approach the microphone, state your name, and limit your comments to 2 minutes. At this time, I invite any member of the audience to step up to the microphone with comments about items of interest or concern that do not appear on tonight's agenda. Please begin by stating your name and contact information. It would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 2 minutes so that we can keep the meeting moving in a timely fashion and allow others an opportunity to speak, as well as allowing the board to complete the full board agenda in a timely manner. Comments from the public are limited to matters within the board's authority. Please understand that we as a board cannot discuss items not already on the agenda. Iowa's Sunshine Law prohibits us from having a discussion without the proper notice to all of the school district community that the issue would be discussed at tonight's board meeting. Also, please remember, you are making comments in a public meeting. Should you make comments that the subject of the comments considers to be inflammatory or libelous, you as an individual may be the subject to legal action brought by the subject of your comments. Thank you for your support of our school district. Are there any comments from the public this evening? Hearing none, we'll move forward to agenda item 3, which is comments by board members and superintendent. We'll start off with Dr. Cox.
Thank you. George Lorber, former superintendent of schools here in Charles City, passed away yesterday. Visitation is tomorrow night from 5 to 8 p.m. Funeral is on Wednesday morning. We have our ACT data results from the class of 2015. Our graduates performed equally as well as the statewide average in English. They outperformed the statewide average in math by 9/10 of a point, so almost 1 full point. In reading, they were 7/10 of a point better than their peers across the state. Science outperformed them by 3/10 of a point, and then our composite was 4/10 of a point higher than the statewide average. So really good news out of the class of 2015. The FEH design recommendations are in, and there is a survey that's going to be distributed. So look for it at our Facebook page, at our district website, our other social media outlets. The Charles City Press will cover this. We want as many people to take the survey as possible, so please find that and take part. And then finally, I was a guest on the KCHA morning show the first 2 weeks of September, and they've asked me to be a recurring guest. So starting on September the 24th, I will be with Chris and Kay in the morning on the 2nd and the 4th Thursdays of the month. So tune in at about 8:15, and it'll be maybe a 10-minute spot twice a month on KCHA.
Excellent.
Very good.
And thank you to Eric Hofer for having me as a guest on Saturday as well.
Thank you. Any comments from board members this evening?
I visited Lincoln School on the first day of school and had a chance to observe the 5th graders enjoying the new lunch with unlimited fruits and veggies and salad bar. And they were excited. They enjoyed it, and I've heard a lot of good comments from parents. We were at a bonfire this past weekend, and there were some younger parents there, and they said the kids are enjoying it. They appreciate it. They like it. And I want to say thanks to Dawn and her team for all their extra efforts on that. President Dite and I observed the student pickup at Washington Elementary one day, just to see. And that, again, we saw everything going quite smoothly. We were impressed. And again, I want to say thank you to the administrators for orchestrating that transition, and looked great to us. Students got to where they needed to go safely. Dr. Cox, thank you for your KCHA interview.
Thanks.
Like I said earlier, the one Saturday you got off it, you just wanted to cheer, yes, go Charles City. It was very exciting. I know Eric has a way of doing that, but it was very exciting to listen to that. Tom and Lorraine Winterick, I want to congratulate you on becoming grandparents.
Thank you.
It's the best. I want to welcome Lorraine into the Grandmas for Quality Education for their Grandchildren Club.
Absolutely.
I no
I'm there
longer am the
with you.
lone grandma on the board looking at, working on that. So,
Thank you.
Welcome, Liam.
Thank you, thank you. I just wanted to mention that, new this year, we had some back-to-school nights and went to the elementary schools during that back-to-school night and really enjoyed it. It was fun to meet all the parents as they were coming in with their kids, just pandemonium, organized pandemonium, as they're so excited to go and meet all of their teachers and find their lockers. And so we really enjoyed that, and hope to do some more of that this year with the kids. And anybody else?
I just had, we had buildings and grounds this morning, so I'd give an update. I echo everything that you guys have both said, but just quick update, buildings and grounds, we met for a while this morning. Really the biggest thing that came out of the meeting was that we, from Estes Construction and BLD, that they had found enough wiggle room and couple of different things to officially include the alternates that we had talked about. So
Yes.
those will be
Great.
moving forward, with the exception of the gym and the amplification system like we had talked about.
So just as a review for everybody, that was
Glass partition,
The glass
glass
walls,
partition,
The shades.
the shades.
external and interior
Right.
shades, right? Some shades, yeah.
on the windows,
So-
yeah. Okay, that's
So that
awesome.
was kind of the good news that came out of buildings and grounds this morning.
Very good.
So-
And previously, we did add the skylights to the
Yeah,
gym.
and I already added the skylight option too, so
Okay.
otherwise, building update was from them this morning, was everything still reasonably on time and certainly on budget, so good
Excellent.
update this morning.
One more bit of business that I wanted to comment on, and that is about 4 years ago, there was a change in senior citizen athletic passes. And previously, I understand senior citizens had been given a free pass to our events. And about 4 years ago, that had changed. And I would just like to review that and, the facts, how are we doing with that? It seems to me that we do have some space in our stadium, as well as, we do have a competition gym that's coming. I would like to see a way that we can engage our seniors, whether that be a reduced sale on the passes, or, let's just look at the facts here and see what we want to do with that. Okay?
That's a good idea.
That'll be added to a future agenda then. Do you have anything, Jim?
Yeah, I just happened to be going by Lincoln School this morning on a tractor about 10 or 10:15, and I couldn't believe all the kids that are out there just having a great time. And I see they even chalked out a miniature soccer field out on the lawn out there, and they were out there playing. And some really good, super different little groups playing doing things together, with supervision. And I thought it really looked fantastic to see all the kids enjoying themselves out there today. So.
Very good.
I had two final things, I guess. I overlooked the Washington parking lot update, which will begin likely the end of this week, early next week, and will take approximately 1 week to finish. So they had a few hurdles that came up that they've been able to overcome, and then that should be going forward here soon. The other one was to build on kind of the ACT thing, but the No Child Left Behind report card that showed improvement for our district that came out a while back was encouraging, and I had clicked on that. One of the, out knocking on doors so much the last month, a recurring theme that I got from some folks was disappointment in the listing of some of our buildings on the schools in need of improvement list. And that, a very interesting stat that I found in that report card was that, that I don't think many people understand is that last year, 54% of the school buildings in the state of Iowa were on that list. That jumped from 54 to 65 this year. So 65% of the buildings in the state are on that list. So we're certainly in, not in the minority on that list. So just one interesting,
Including Ames.
including Ames,
Including
which you had
Ames.
talked about being kind of the star for academic excellence. So. Good, thank you.
Well, I just have one thing to finish up, I guess, and that would be that with all of the beginning of the year activities, I did go to Lincoln Elementary for their Dilly Bar family night and watched the kids and enjoyed activities there and chatted with parents. So again, organized pandemonium chaos as kids go out and do their thing and adults stand around and chat. So it was an enjoyable evening, and thank you for allowing me to participate in that at Lincoln as well. Anything else?
I did have a conversation, my wife was in the hospital this last week, and I was down in the restaurant area there talking to a lady that, her and her husband had both been teachers in California, and they were back here with some of their relatives were sick, but anyway, we just got to talking, and she said, you know, California is the poorest paid teachers in the nation. She said, my husband and I were both teachers, and if we had 2 children, and if we had one more, we could have got food stamps. So it's kind of surprising. And she was talking about how well the teachers were paid here in the state of Iowa, and how, and of course, Dr. Cox and I were talking, we didn't know whether she's comparing their wages against their cost of living, or what we didn't go into details on what they were, but,
Right.
but she said that they were, very happy with what Iowa's doing, and that they were very disappointed in what they were getting in California, but they're both retired now anyway, so whatever. Just a thought.
Agenda item 4 is approval of the minutes. If you remember, board policy says we have 1 meeting in August, but it appears we ended up with 4 meetings in a work session. So is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Make a motion that we approve the
One
minutes.
second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular meetings, special meetings, and work session for the month of August. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 5, approval of monthly bills for September of 2015. Are there any questions on the bills?
Motion to approve the monthly bills for September of 2015.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the bills for September of 2015. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Maycumber,
Abstain?
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes. Motion carried 4-0 with 1 abstention. And your abstention was because?
My name is on the bill list.
Your name
this
is in the
month.
bill run, okay. Agenda item 6, $3,105,000 general obligation school capital loan notes, series 2015. You taking this, or is Mrs. O'Brien?
Mrs. O'Brien can take this one.
Move your microphone closer, please.
All of the documents, there's multitudes of documents, were prepared by Beth Grove Allers Law Firm based on what was approved at your August 27th meeting. And so we just need to make a motion or approve the resolution authorizing the payment and execution of the loan agreement. Basically, you've already taken action that you approved a bid, and this just approves the loan documents to make that final.
I'll make a motion to approve the loan document for the $3,105,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve agenda item 6 the $3,105,000 general obligation school capital loan notes, Series 2015, as presented. Any discussion? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 7, the $4,800,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenues bonds, Series 2015.
And same thing as in item number 6, but this one is for the sales tax revenue bonds for $4.8 million. This is above, I think, when you were talking at your last meeting, where they had projected it. But this is what could fit into our payment schedule. So anyway, the suggested motion just approves the resolution and authorizes the execution of those agreements.
Was that the company from Arizona?
Pinnacle?
Pinnacle? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution to go ahead and or purchase the bonds for $4,800,000.
I'll second that.
Agenda item 7, the $4.8 million school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue series bonds has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Anything from the public? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Winnering?
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 8 is the 2014-15 certified annual report. And I'm guessing this is what we have the presentation for.
Yes, I just did a few PowerPoint slides to show you. The actual certified annual report covers July 1, 2014 to June 30, 2015, and summarizes many, many transactions. So what you're going to see is a brief summary of what the results were. First off, starting with the balance sheet, the general fund, which is, again, our largest fund, the unassigned fund balance decreased 11%. You can see from 1.6 million to 1.4 million. This is mainly due to our cash reserve now, and our expenses that weren't covered by our cash reserve. So I'm going to show you later on and talk about what we're doing to increase our cash balance. Now, the unspent balance is not what I'm going to call the most important factor in what the SBRC looks at, the School Budget Review Committee, for those that don't use this daily. The unspent balance is the important measurement of a district's health, and we're going to get to that. But this just shows a diagram of where our unspent balance has been. And you can see it's been up and down quite a bit. The big dip back in 2010 was when the state reduced our cash in the middle of the year. And then we spent several years rebuilding that. The last 2 years, our cash hasn't been sufficient to cover our expenses, but we, as you can see in this next slide, which is a representation of our unspent balance, that has stayed where we want it. We don't want it increasing, meaning that we would not be spending everything we get on education, but we don't want it decreasing either. And so we're at a good level with our unspent balance. Next, for our year-end revenue results, our general fund revenue was up 3%, and you can see the breakdown between, you know, our local taxes, which is our property taxes, and tuition and other sources, state sources, and federal sources. Our tuition went up and our federal sources went up, but if you look at what makes up the majority of our revenue in the general fund, it's the state sources. And you can kind of see we've increased actually on all of these. As far as general fund expenses, they increased 2%. Our salary and benefits, which is our majority of our expenses, currently make up 84.2% of our total expenses in the fund. And here is just a representation of the salary in comparison to supplies and other expenses. I finalized the worksheet that you receive every month as far as where we compare to our budget. So, and we will start doing that with our 2015-16 year next month. But our revenues ended up 1% over where we were anticipating, and you know, with that kind of budget, that's pretty close. And then you can see too where our salaries and benefits were slightly under what was anticipated. Now, keep in mind, at the bottom I talk about carryover funds. That's important because I budget for all categorical funds being spent, and we didn't spend those. We again carried over some of our categorical money, and there was $777,000 that we carried over of categorical funds where we actually received the revenue but didn't spend it. So we have to carry it over for that purpose in future years. Last year, that amount was $640,000. So we actually carried over more than we did in the previous year. And here's our solvency ratio, which you can see the calculation there. It went down, but that is a result of our unspent or our undesignated fund balance, which is the result of cash going down, because it's a measurement of that undesignated balance to revenue. Now, what we're doing for 2016 fiscal year, 15-16, is we did increase our cash reserve levy and modified supplemental amount by 31%. So we've taken measures to stop the slide in our solvency ratio. And then these last few slides deal with other funds other than our general fund. So I grouped the sales tax, PEPAL, and debt service into one category. And you can see our balance increased. Now that balance is, the debt service fund is set aside to make payments on our debt that we issued in 2013. And we have an increasing balance in the sales tax and PEPAL as well. We will have a cash payment at the end of the middle school project that will come out of there. The capital projects fund is actually where we keep the debt proceeds that we're paying the middle school construction from. We started at approximately $9 million, and we spent about $1 million this past year to pay for mainly architects and our engineer that's working on it. We did actually start paying some of the contractors in June for some of the work that they did. Management fund increased slightly, and the activity fund decreased slightly.
Do we have outstanding, we don't have any outstanding debt or payments to come against the management fund? Is that?
Oh,
So we increased that, that's increased the last several years, but do we have?
we didn't have early retirement. We have the 2 support staff that we're going to be paying for the insurance, and then there were 4 teachers that retired. Now, the amount per teacher will come out of, it did go down, I guess, is what I was going to say. But yes, the 281 is sufficient to cover those early retirement bonuses and insurance that we pay out of there, property insurance, not health insurance.
Okay.
What, Terry, may I ask, I guess maybe I don't quite understand it. What's the fluctuation in the student activity fund? What did we change there to?
You know, there really isn't a change. I talked to Todd about that, and he's aware of it. You know, we have a smaller amount of home games. We had some issues with baseball and different things. They did also spend some of their reserve on that scoreboard out at the football field, you know, where we put it in to specifically for that purpose. So if you compare the 2015 balance to the 2014 balance, you know, it did go up last year, but now it went back down. Todd is aware of the decrease. So, you know, the balance is still healthy, but we do need to pay attention to it.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the proprietary funds, that's our food service balance. Food service, there's a new accounting requirement called GASB 68, where we have to account for pensions. In other words, IFRS pensions for our current employees. This is a brand new thing. Now, you're going to see later on what that actually means to our food service unspent balance. This, I took it out so that you could compare apples to apples. If we wouldn't have made an accounting change, this is what would our fund balance would have been. Down slightly in the nutrition fund, and then our health and flex funds, it was up. Now, that's where we keep our self-insured health balance. So when premiums are taken out of checks and paid for health insurance, they go into this account, and then Wellmark sends us bills and we take it out. So that went up slightly. And then here I did the same thing with the other funds, showing where we ended up with our year end. If you look at the expenses in the food service fund, we were $271,000 over our budget. But then again, that is not cash. That relates to an accounting entry that we are required to make. It's showing the liability for the food service employees for future pensions. So I think you can look at where we ended with these funds, and then that's it.
So, only question on our decrease in the solvency rate of
The solvency ratios?
yeah, that's still well within the
Yeah.
state's financial health guidelines, right?
Right. You know, at some point, we don't want it to get too much lower.
Too high or too low, right?
Yeah. Because if you get it too high, you know, you're not spending what the state gives you on education.
Do you remember the low end of that guideline?
You know, I've seen different people make different
Different numbers.
recommendations as to what level is most appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, in the 8 to 10% range is certainly acceptable.
That's what I remembered. And just a decrease in, what is that, $100,000 of $170,000
Right.
worth of, dropped us a little over 1%, and we could theoretically increase by 272, so next year, makes sense.
Yep.
IASB recommends 5 to 15%.
5 to 15,
5
I
to
couldn't remember
15.
what that number was.
That's quite a range.
It is quite a
That's-
range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're right in the middle then.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good.
Thank you, that's a phenomenal program, that really, as complex an issue as this is, that's as simple as it can be made.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mrs. O'Brien?
Nice job, Terry.
Yeah.
You made it very easy to understand where we are.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the 2014-15 certified annual report.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 14-15 CIR. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes. Motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 9, special education supplement for 14-15.
With the certified annual report, we also do another report called the special ed supplement, which calculates the weighted revenue that you receive for special ed students and all of the costs associated. The state then allows us to take our deficit, if you have one, and request modified supplemental amount for the deficit. And that's what we're doing, or that's what the recommendation is that we request the supplemental state aid in the amount of $492,982.41 for the fiscal year 2015 negative special ed balance.
Simply put, we're making that balance up with property taxes, correct?
Right.
So
Well, we can choose to.
Choose to.
When we get to our budget in April, that's where you actually
Oh, do it.
do it. This gives us the supplemental amount, which will keep your unspent balance from declining. So this is important for our unspent balance. Now, the cash behind the deficit is where in April you will address whether you levy property tax to cover that.
Thank you. I had remembered this from one of the first meetings I was on the board last year, and the amount was, of course, was smaller than this. And when
less last
I made it a point last year at the state school board convention to ask how common this is between districts, because this year this is a pretty large number in my opinion. And the response I got was that 75 to 80% of the schools in the state run a deficit. So that we're obviously not alone in this boat, but this, go ahead, Jim.
Is this our spending authority then?
No.
We
No.
talked about?
This just relates specifically to our special education budget. per
I was
se.
thinking we had around 492,000 in the what is it, the spending authority, which allows us to have that loss, but we have to assess tax to get it back, get it, the
Right.
cash for it.
The spending authority, they've kind of changed the name to supplemental.
Oh, okay, okay,
Supplemental amount. It's
Okay.
really the same thing.
okay.
Kind of what I was looking at is that obviously we're not alone in this boat. You know,
Yeah.
it's a statewide epidemic
Right.
of sorts, but that I also look at this number and I understand that there are a number of things that are substantially out of our control, you know, with the student population that we have that fall into this category. But yet I would like to see us somehow rein this number in. I think you've done some rough calculation that equates to nearly $1 per thousand valuation of property tax. So it would be if we could rein that number in to some extent, it would be a great opportunity for property tax relief
This is
in the coming years.
a difficult area
Mhm.
to just cut. You can't
It
just go
is.
in here and cut programs. You just can't go in there and cut positions.
Correct.
It definitely, there isn't a solution like that to this
No.
amount.
Is there a growing number of students that were
No.
special
No.
education? No, it's
Numbers are
going down, just
decreasing.
expenses went up. Okay.
Or either
Mandated
went
expenses,
up
yeah.
or even maintaining with lower levels of students will
Okay.
make that deficit go up.
And increased programming that we've had to provide
Right.
at other places. The number of students we've had to send to Bremwood for services, to River Hills, Pinecrest, and those aren't cheap.
And we had discussed, there's no way that we could locally offer the services because they're so diverse.
Right.
That for us to try to do something locally the cost would be even more.
Greater.
Because some of them services require one-on-one almost, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Good discussion.
Ready for a motion?
Motion to request supplemental state aid in the amount of $492,982.41 for fiscal year 2015 negative special education balance.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve agenda item 9 as presented. Any other comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Winterick,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes,
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Is this where we added, moved our other agenda item?
No.
No.
Item 44B.
Okay. Number 10, depository for 2015 debt issuance.
I sent out bid specs to the local banks and also to the ISJIT, the Iowa Schools Joint Investment Trust, to see what kind of interest rate they would pay us to set up accounts in their bank to house the $8 million that we're going to be getting at the 1st of October. So that's between the sales tax and PEPL. And the bid from First Security Bank for 0.62% on the sales tax and 0.65 in PEPL was the highest. And I'm going to recommend that you approve us creating 2 new accounts at First Security. We're going to use the First Citizens account first and use all of the $10 million that we issued back in 2013 first, and then we'll start using this.
may I ask this question, is how long do we figure this money's gonna be in there? Before we
Well,
take the last of it out? I mean, it's a sizable amount of it out. Gonna be 2 years yet before we draw it
No,
out?
I mean, if the schedule of the building project stays on track,
Okay.
next September.
Okay.
Probably looking at a 12-month deposit.
October at the latest.
Okay, that's why I was wondering, because it seemed like for that long a time, they could give us a better rate of interest than that for the amount of time it's going to be there, for the amount of dollars, you'd think, but
But you did
maybe
say this-
possibly not, so.
This came in the highest.
Yes,
Yeah.
and if you consider what kind of interest rates you're getting, I know it is a much, much larger account, but the rate of return on just your savings account is very low. I
Yeah.
think this is a good rate.
Very
But
attractive.
sometimes, I believe what I'm saying, sometimes when they get that amount of money and have it for a long time, they can find a good long-term investment for it to get a better return, so they can pay us a better return, but apparently, because we're going to be drawing out of that probably regularly too, aren't we? So, yeah, okay.
And weren't they predicting sometime December or January, we would start drawing out
Right.
of here?
Right,
Okay.
out of like
That's
November.
fine. I just wondered.
And we're going to get the money on October 1st, so just before we were, I mean, it's all a big guess.
Yeah.
Estimated to have spent it,
Okay.
our 2013 debt anyway.
Was this the only bid that came in, or this was the
No.
highest bid?
This is the highest bid, there were 4 bids.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion then that we use First Security Bank for our two bank accounts, for our Pebble funds and for our sales tax depository.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to have First Security Bank be the depository for the 2015 debt issuance. Any other questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes,
Maycumber.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 11, treasurer statements. This is you again, Mrs. O'Brien.
Yep. As part of board policy, every year I'm to present to you the depository statements, and in your exhibits, there are the balances. These balances are what I used when we did the bank reconciliations at June 30. And so I ask that you approve those, or receive and accept them, I guess.
I'll make a motion that we accept them.
Well, this
Or
isn't,
actually, it
this
isn't.
isn't an action item. It's
Oh, it isn't?
more
Okay.
just that it will be
Right.
noted in the minutes that they were presented.
Yes.
And we received them then.
Okay. All right, I see.
Agenda item 12, canvass of elections.
I'll take this one.
Okay.
The official results came in after the printing of the agenda, so we have the updated numbers for you tonight. In the two-year term, Lorraine Winterink received 2,001 votes, Doug Lindeman 335. In the four-year term race, Robin Maycumber 1,735 votes, Jason Walker 1,705, Richard Schultz 807, and Jeff Bergstrom 783. So elected for office, Director at Large for a term of 2 years, Lorraine Winterink, and elected for the office of Director at Large, 4-year term, Jason Walker and Robin Maycumber. And the recommendation is to approve the abstract of votes as presented.
Is there a motion?
I'll
I'm-
make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the abstract of votes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes,
Maycumber.
Yes.
Winnering,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 13 is to adjourn the retiring board. And at 7:15, we are adjourned.
Pack up.
And at 7:15, I will call the organizational meeting of the board to order and ask that the secretary call the roll.
Dyke,
Present.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Walker,
Here.
Wintering.
Yes.
At this time, the board secretary will administer the oath of office to the 3 newly elected board members. So if you would stand and raise your right hand, or whatever direction she wants to give you.
Yeah.
You want to come
Don't
over
forget
here
to
so they
smile.
can get a,
I'll make a taste of it.
Take it.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of board member in the Charles City Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? If so, say I do. I do.
That was a lot of stuff.
At this time, I will ask if there are nominations for board president for 2015-16.
I'll nominate Scott Dyke.
I'll second that.
And on nominations, we just need a nomination. It doesn't require a second.
Oh, okay.
As a
We're-
information item for you.
We're just in the groove, aren't we?
Are
We
there
all
other
like to be
nominations
coming
for the
home.
office of president for 2015-16? Hearing none, we will declare,
Or we'll have a motion and second to cease nominations.
we will have a motion and second to cease nominations. Thank you.
All right, we'll cease nominations for president.
And I'll second it.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to cease nominations for president. Call the roll, please.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Wintering,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dyke.
yes.
So the oath.
So Terry will administer the oath. We just hold it.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of president in the Charles City Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? If so, say I do.
I do.
Are there nominations for the office of vice president for 2015-16?
I move to approve Jason Walker as vice president.
So there's a nomination for Jason Walker as vice president. Are there any other nominations?
I make a motion nomination cease.
Is
I'll
there-
second that.
All right, has been moved and seconded to cease nominations. Secretary, please call the roll.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Wintering?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Mr. Walker, would you take the oath?
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Vice President in the Charles City Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? If so, say I do.
Do.
I pass the gavel back.
Thank you, Dr. Cox. Agenda item 17, appointment of district secretary treasurer for 2015-16.
I nominate Terry O'Brien as our district secretary treasurer for 2015-16.
Second.
I move nomination cease.
This one's, you guys are actually appointing me, so.
Okay,
You're
well,
elected, you just don't-
let me rephrase that. We're not nominating you, we'll appoint
We'll appoint.
Terry O'Brien as Board Secretary Treasurer.
Terry O'Brien has been moved and seconded that she be appointed as the district secretary and treasurer for 2015-16.
I still move appointment. Cease.
There you go. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Maycumber.
Absolutely.
Dyke.
You bet. Motion carried 5-0.
And you get to administer the oath of office.
So you have the paperwork, right?
Yes.
She's got it for you.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Board Secretary Treasurer in Charles City Community School District as now and hereafter required by law? If so, say I do.
I do.
Congratulations.
And those are digital pictures.
Agenda item 18, appointment of legal counsel.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Jim Hanks as legal counsel for the year 2015-16.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Jim Hanks as legal counsel for 15-16. Any comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Walker.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Winnering.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 19, naming of district official publication.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Charles City Press as the district's official publication.
I'll second that.
Been
Making
moved
lots of
and
motions tonight.
Yeah.
Been moved and seconded to approve
The
the
meeting
Charles
movement.
City Press as the official publication. Any discussion or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Winnering.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 20, naming of school depository for 2015-16.
I have a question. We've got these banks all listed at a dollar amount. Is that the maximum we can put in each account,
Right.
In each bank.
in each bank? Each-
Without
okay.
amending it. I mean, if you were to put in more, it's one of those accounting.
How close to that amount are we now? I mean, is this the amount we got in there now?
At CUS Bank, I think we're at 11 million.
Okay.
So I don't foresee our balances increasing greatly, and if they do, we'd have to just come back and amend it.
Okay, now the next question, is that what we set these other two new accounts for, was to add account such and such for security, so they'll have 3 accounts there now, basically?
They'll have two accounts there. The other one for the 2013 debt issuance is at First Citizens.
Okay, okay. Sounds good.
But at the present time, we won't, when do we start receiving state aid?
State aid would be next month.
And it'll be November before property taxes?
Well, the large property tax payment would be like October.
Late October, sometime
Because
mid-October?
September 30 is when they're due. And so our large payment is usually October, November.
So we've got another 4 to 6 weeks
I don't know.
without much income.
I haven't paid mine yet.
We have 15 days.
Wait till the last minute.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the following banks depositories for 2015-16 as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve agenda item 20 as presented. Any discussion or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Maycumber,
Yes.
Winnering,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 21, review of policy 210.2, regular meetings.
Regular
this is
meetings
you.
are currently the second, and fourth Mondays at 6:30 PM. The recommendation is to move that to 5:30 PM. Also, there's a recommended change in the language to have a second and fourth board meeting in every month except December. Currently, August and July and March. August and July don't have them. So a couple of changes for you to consider, or to at least have some discussion about.
So why are you suggesting or recommending that we have more than one regular meeting in July and August?
We have had a number of special meetings in the 2 years that I've been here in the months of July and August. We have the building project continuing at least through the end of next summer. So logic dictates we're going to have some special meetings. Why not just put it on everyone's calendar so that the public knows ahead of time, so that we can all plan accordingly as well to have a regular meeting twice a month. This year we even encountered needing to move the meeting, which traditionally had been the third Monday in July, but as Terry informed you all, she can get the information done by the second, and now with the fourth Monday as well in July, that it creates more flexibility. And then the question you also didn't ask, why the move to 5:30?
I was getting to that.
That's what I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, the move to 5:30.
Taking one step at a time.
Sure. That was the time when I came, that 5:30 had been set so that on Mondays, when the board meeting conflicts with things like the academic awards program, with a concert, which those events always start at 7, at least if we're starting at 5:30, that gives us an hour and a half to get done with our business, potentially to get done with the meeting, so that we can then move into the auditorium for the program, rather than having to cause people to choose, am I going to the board meeting or to the event?
Okay,
But I'll
now-
have to choose whether to go to the board meeting or not if we move it to 5:30.
But if we set the dates, the first and third, they could set their other dates, the second and fourth.
Well, ours are the second and fourth. but
Okay, first and third then they can use.
When you have, I'll give you an example, a vocal concert,
Okay.
an orchestra concert, and a band concert, and you try to put them all in a concise time frame of succeeding weeks to be themed around the end of the season, so whether it's going to be the holiday season or what have you, or in the spring, it becomes more complex to say, all right, well, we can only have it every other week and spread them all out. That would be one example. The academic awards, you're right, that could be moved. I think this year it was on the fifth Monday, but we have such a variety of extracurricular activities and programs and assemblies and concerts and plays and everything that it's my recommendation. Robin has a work conflict that she shared with me ahead of time after the recommendation had gone to print, but do you want to speak to that at all, or?
Well, I normally work out of town. I don't work in Charles City. My commute is usually an hour plus long. I don't sit at a desk and look nice when I get done with work at the end of the day. I am usually not quite presentable, so I need time to commute home, prepare, and come to this meeting. And 6:30 is walking out of my house usually at 6:20 and coming here at 6:30. We've had to make a lot of concession because we have a lot of extra meetings. And as everybody knows, I'm self-employed. I don't get paid for the hours I take off. I don't get paid vacation. So if there's any way that at least the regular meetings can be conducive to my schedule, it would be greatly appreciated. And this is our board meeting, and I know that there's other school functions and that, but I would hope there would be some convenience for us, seeing as this is our board meeting.
I have the same feeling that I'm self-employed too, and 6 months out of the years, we work by the sun more so than we do by the time clock. And, you know, if they could quit working at 5:30 in the harvest time and planning time to come to the meeting when 6:30, by then it's dark a lot of times, you know. And I don't know, there's no way we could do it for half a year one way and half a year the other way, because the rest of the year I wouldn't care what time you have it.
It just confuses people if you
During them
mix it up.
times of the year, I got. And I think we kind of set it back to 6:30 because some of the people weren't getting off work in time to get home and cleaned up like Robin and get here, you know.
My only ask is that if we stay at 6:30, we make a concerted effort to shorten our meetings. You know, I never make
Okay.
it home to put the kids to bed. I don't, you know, I miss out on that obviously a couple times a month because of this. That's obviously not a financial concession on my part, but a family concession. And, you know, getting done at 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night is hard to,
Yep, I
hard for me
understand
to
that, too.
swing with the family as well. So there is a happy medium. I hope that we're through some of these 3-hour meetings
Yeah, I
and that they
think we are.
become very infrequent now, which I think will be the case. But I had supported 5:30. I respect the need for your guys as well. You know, so I can support 6:30 as well, but I hope that moving forward, we have the opportunity to have 1 and hour-and-a-half meetings too. So.
I understand your situation, Jason, but I think, like you said, I think we're getting to a point now where these meetings are going to start shortening up because
Hopefully.
we've got a lot of the decision part.
Yeah.
We just got to follow through on everything as we go along.
What's that?
See that or meet early in the morning.
Yeah, 6:30 in the morning's okay with me too.
Good work for me.
Not for me. I'm not a morning person. Do you have a preference, Lorraine?
You know, I could go either way. I do like the idea of 5:30, but I, like the rest of you, am self-employed, and our Mondays are just insane for our business, and so the extra time certainly helps me. But I do understand Jason's
Yeah,
point about,
situation, too.
you know, I think we're beyond those long meetings, and we can get our business done, you know, sufficiently and get out of here within an hour and a half or so, whatever it takes. But what time is bedtime, Jason?
Bedtime or the time they fall asleep, but 8:30.
Okay.
Maybe you have to have an early dismissal for.
Yeah.
We'll
So
do our
Session.
best.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah. Have a motion to,
How is this policy going to read from going forward?
let's see.
Well, before we get to a motion, then, is there any more discussion? This is your part,
As
but
far as
is there
what?
other discussion on the, every month except December, having 2 regular meetings?
No,
No.
nobody disagreed
fine.
with that, so I just figured they were fine with it.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
If for whatever reason there was nothing, we could always cancel. So,
Yes.
Oh, there'll be something. We just had 5 meetings
Yeah.
this August instead of 2. There'll be something.
I'd like to
All
make
right.
a motion that we,
I was in the middle of this
oh,
motion.
you're right in the middle, okay. go
I'm in the
ahead.
middle of this motion. All right, we're going to move to maintain our meetings at 6:30 according to policy 210.2.
But we're
And-
going to approve the
Oh.
first reading
Second and fourth.
Yeah,
where we,
With paragraph 1 as changed.
right,
So Lorraine,
So, a
the
first
way I
reading.
understand it, we're all agreeing that paragraph 1
yeah,
is okay.
The
The only
second
thing
and
we
fourth
don't like
Monday.
with paragraph 2 is the time,
right,
so we'll change that back to 6:30. Correct?
correct.
So if you make that the motion,
Okay.
then we're all on the same page, right?
All right, yep,
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve regular meeting policy 210.2, paragraph 1 as written, paragraph 2 change back to 6:30 PM, the meeting start time. Any
As the first
discussion?
reading.
As the first reading. So next meeting will be at 6:30 PM anyway.
Correct.
Because-
For the second reading.
The policy won't take effect until after the second reading. Okay.
Can't you waive the second reading?
Any discussion on the first reading of the changes? Roll call vote, please.
Wintering,
yes.
Walker,
yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried, 5-0. Agenda item 22, board member appointments for 2015-16. It's the only agenda item I'm not real sure about tonight. In going over these, we have potentially 12 different appointments to make. As you saw in Dr. Cox's Friday information recommending that 2 people be appointed to the School Improvement Advisory Committee instead of 1, and it would be best if that, those appointments were gender neutral, one of each on there, as well as the other appointments that we have.
I think
So Board Finance,
this one, this one, this one.
this last year, it was myself and Lorraine. Volunteers.
I think you guys did a really good job.
Thank you. Yes. I'm happy to stay on there unless, Scott, you had anything else that you wanted to do.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
We tend to have our meetings either later in the morning or
Yes, we do.
mid-afternoon,
Yes.
so.
All right, we'll stay on that.
Okay. School Improvement Advisory Committee. Jason was on that.
I'd like to be on that.
You want to be on that, Jim?
Yeah.
I'd like to be on that.
Okay. So Jim and Lorraine. Delegate to the Iowa Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly.
Robbins did a good job there if she wants to keep it.
I was hoping to move around a little bit, actually.
I think you'd make a good delegate, Jim. Would you be interested in that? No?
No, I don't think so.
I'm not interested in that at all. That's
I-
one of them that I really don't want.
I will stay there, but I also would like I have 2 other committees that I would like to be involved with. So however that divides out, I'm willing to stay there, but I'm not willing to stay there giving up my opportunity to be on.
Okay.
2 people have to be on 3 committees.
All right. I will stay there then.
County Conference Board Representative.
I'll stay on there, if you don't mind.
Okay. Whether they meet twice,
Twice, yeah.
maybe 3 times at the most.
Twice so far, most of the time.
Buildings and Grounds.
I'd like to stay there.
I would like to add myself to Buildings and Grounds also.
Not a problem. I'm willing to give that up.
I wouldn't mind being on there either, but that's fine.
Give us a man and a woman on there.
That would,
Gender balance.
Gender balanced. Negotiations and compensation.
I think that
I cannot.
Lorraine and I talked about that, and somebody that's been on there should stay on there.
Yeah.
Because I kind of know.
I'd be happy to stay on there.
Okay, well,
I cannot.
And I would like to go to negotiations.
okay,
Awesome.
I'll get off of that one. Okay.
Okay.
So we have who?
Robin and Lorraine.
Robin and
Okay.
Lorraine.
We're not gender neutral there, but
Right.
That's all right.
it's what they. Board policy.
I only have 1 assignment so far. I don't.
I'd
which,
stay
I
on.
hate to point out, but. you know,
I would stay on.
Yeah,
there.
why do you
it's-
only
it's-
have 1?
It's up.
Well, I guess you just volunteered.
And I only have 1.
So Jason and
guess
Scott.
We're
I
on
would
board
stay on there.
policy?
And or it doesn't matter. Let's see, what are you have a couple, Jim?
I have a couple.
You have a couple. You have.
But Scott's got enough to do as
Scott
president
too.
without having
Yeah.
him on, if he wants to not
I don't-
not be on too.
I don't mind if Jim and I are on that
On
together.
policy.
That's fine with me. That's okay with you, Scott?
I'll take finance as my only committee.
That's
That's
pretty gonna be
not
a
a
pretty good
problem.
one. That's gonna be a pretty good one in the coming year, so. And the president role, obviously.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I mean, Jim, you're on 2. If you don't mind going to 3, that's your,
Well, one of them only meets once or twice a year, so.
yeah.
And the other ones are in the wintertime too, basically. I mean, the negotiations, so. Or no, I'm not on negotiations anymore. Well, school improvement, that's fine. Yep, I'll stay on there.
Everybody happy with their,
I would, did you have a preference, Scott, on the board policy? If you preferred it, then I would offer to take Robin's delegate, but that's up to you guys.
Say that again?
I said, I don't think Robin was real excited on the delegate thing.
No,
If,
I'll keep the
if-
delegate, that's fine.
You're okay there?
I'm fine.
You sure?
I've got my feet pretty good.
Pretty good on that one.
I can tell other people what to do now.
Okay, that's fine. Then-
Because it is, you have to understand, at the delegate assembly, a lot of times, it's just a big room and all these board members show up and you get almost no instruction. And so the newbies look to the ones that have been there before
Oh,
to help
so now
guide
now
them.
you've been, yeah. Okay, then.
So-
She's seasoned now.
Kind of a confusion.
And it's okay with the board policy because no matter how many hundreds of pages you have to present to us,
Yeah.
Dr. Cox and Terry know that I'll be in
Yeah.
the office to read them
Sure.
before they come to the board anyway.
Okay, that's
Because
fine.
I've done that the last 2 years,
That's fine.
so,
If you want another one though, Scott, I'd give up one. That's up to you.
which one?
How many do you have, Jim?
Probably the board policy one, if you want to be on that one, I'd give that one up. You and Jason.
I'd take that.
Okay, I'll give that one up then.
That only meets a couple times a year as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you do it anyway, like you said.
Okay,
you do.
then
I
I'll be
go
on the
through it.
county and,
Sorry.
County
No matter
and
what
school
you
committee.
have, I'll read them before they come to the board
that's
anyway.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
that's fine.
is there a motion?
Motion to approve the committee appointments as presented or decided upon.
I'll
As
second.
negotiated?
Yeah, as negotiated.
Been moved and seconded to approve the board member appointments as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Wintering?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 23, Spanish program presentation.
They waited patiently.
Yes, they did.
You're going to speak in English, right?
Well, we talked about it. No promises. We first wanted to congratulate the three of you for the reelection, and then just to thank all of you for all of your hours of time that you've put in with the school district.
Thank you.
My name is Angie Holzer. I've been teaching in this school district for a little over 10 years now. I teach the upper level Spanish courses now.
Angie, you might
Is that
have
mic,
to,
turn your mic.
Oh, I don't think
should be
that's
on.
Is it?
you just have to,
Yeah, you
There
just
we
got
go.
to
You have to
move
really
closer.
talk.
You got to
Talking
speak
to
into
the-
it.
I'll turn it up.
And I'm Melina Davis, and this is my second year of teaching, and I actually have the shared position. I teach 3 classes of Spanish 1 in Charles City, and in the mornings I teach 2 classes of Spanish 3 and an 8th grade exploratory Spanish in New Hampton. So I'm in New Hampton in the mornings, Charles City in the afternoons.
So Josh wanted us to come and talk a little bit today about our program and some of the work we did this summer to make some improvements and changes in the program, and some things we were really, really excited about. So we've been working really hard to create a program that builds proficiency through the levels.
We are using more than just a textbook this year. We're using varied resources. We're using books, novels, songs, stories, short readings, commercials, movies. We're moving towards using resources that are made by native speakers for native speakers. So we call those authentic resources, and we're trying to incorporate a lot of those into our classes because we think, you know, if a student is watching a commercial or a song, they're going to process that in a different way than just reading a textbook, and it's going to resonate with them. We also talk about when you're speaking in your native language, you don't think about all those grammar rules. You know, when I talk to my 3-year-old, I don't tell her, oh, okay, now say it in present tense, you know. I don't do that. I just correct her and I move on, and then the next time she says it correctly. So we're doing that a lot more with our students. We're moving towards language acquisition over language learning and memorization. We're not doing the vocab lists that are more traditional. We're trying to present all this information through short bits of comprehensible input, short bits of information, and really helping the students acquire language over memorizing it.
And so by immersing them in the language, it helps to develop the literacy in a much faster, much easier rate for students. And this type of teaching is called comprehensible input. And that's what we spent several days on this summer. with Mr. Johnson's approval to go to a conference up in Woodbury, Minnesota. And so not only did we get to bond a little bit and just spend some time getting to know each other, being she was new last year, but we've got to work together on a program that we can kind of use across the curriculum a little bit more. So being an experienced teacher, because I've been doing this a little bit, not fully, but I've been doing this a little bit for probably about 5 years or 6 years in just parts and pieces. And so I got to attend for half days, go see experienced teachers teaching students in language camp at the high school there. And so we got to actually see this happening, and then they would leave on a break and we get to debrief a little bit, like what happened, and ask questions and those kinds of things.
So what we'd heard, the feedback from that was that that was one of the first times that had been seen where you go actually witness a teacher teach a class. And to have that happening in action and not just having them tell us about it was huge, was a great opportunity. As a beginning teacher, I actually attended a session where they said, okay, this is the method we're teaching, this is how we do it. And we had a master teacher teach us a lesson in Russian. And I walked in with my Spanish background. There are no similar words in Russian or in Spanish, very few that are similar in Russian and English. So they really wanted everybody on the same page as a level 1 novice learner that just walks into a room. And she did it, she gave us short pieces of phrases and just very repetitive, easy to understand information, and taught this lesson in Russian. And I can say I probably spent maybe an hour to an hour and a half total in that classroom. And I can still to this day remember every phrase that was taught. It wasn't memorized and you walk out the door and you don't remember any of it. I can still to this day remember it because of the way she engaged us, the way she repeated the story, the way it was put into, again, short pieces of comprehensible input that are easy to understand and easy to remember, and repeated enough times for me to acquire it instead of just walk out the door and forget it.
So, and then the other half of the day, then we just got to attend comprehensible input sessions. So just to see what kind of things, movie talks, where you use commercials or movies to teach. It's just lots of repetition with things kids can understand and be able to turn around and produce language then.
So a lot of this is very similar. In my background, I worked in the ELL department here for 4 years. So I worked for Kathy Blanchard, and I worked with ELL students. And a lot of what I learned has a lot to do with how we teach ELL students to speak English. It's through immersion. It's through giving them information that they can understand and relate to and be interested in. So that's very similar to the way I learned to speak English. Spanish was my first language. So it was very similar to the way I learned to speak English. Yes, I used textbooks in it, but I also watched movies, I also listened to music, and I also did all those other things that I'm trying to get in my classroom for students to also be interested and participate in.
And so what I'm really excited about is this is the first time, I think, in 5 years that we've had the same teacher for a second year in a row. And then to have her on board with what I'm doing, and we can just make it a fluid program. And so we're super excited to see what we can do in the future, assuming she stays. I always get nervous about that every year. And just to continue, maybe possibly adding an exploratory in the future, or a native language course would be a lovely idea as well, because we have a lot of native speakers in our classrooms. And we try to differentiate for them, but we understand that we're teaching, down here to our newly learning students where they've already had some of that background. And they still learn some things, and we, like I said, we differentiate for them to a certain degree, but it would be really nice to have that native speaking class. So.
And along those lines, if we start them younger, we could potentially look at having an AP class in the future as well. So there's lots of places to grow in this program, and so we hope you keep that in mind in the future.
That was one of my questions. You said 8th grade is exploratory?
Yes, I currently teach 8th grade in New Hampton, but yes, exploratory or introductory is what we call
So
it.
that's the youngest that we start currently?
No.
No, that's at New Hampton.
In New Hampton?
We don't have
at
an 8th grade.
all.
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
Well,
Which is, for a new person that's never book it whatsoever, which is the hardest to get them to understand, the pronunciation or the meaning?
With the way we teach, we kind of immerse them in it. So
Okay.
it's just kind of like if you're around a small child who says, me want to go somewhere, you don't sit there and go, oh no dear, you don't say me want to go. You know, you just say, oh, I want to go. And you just kind of, so that's kind of what we do in our classroom. We correct them in a non-threatening way.
Right. That's what I was going
That
to say.
make
We
sense?
don't embarrass them. And I told them
Right.
that for me, learning English, that was one of the hardest parts, was being told, oh, what did you say? You know, or that's not how you say that. So I don't do that. When I correct them, they know it comes from a place of quick, you know, this, I'll repeat it back to them so they hear the correct pronunciation, and then we keep going so that it's not a big, you know,
So it depends on the
spectacle.
student for pronunciation
I mean,
learning. Some
I
are
see
really
it in
good.
writing, and then I don't have the slightest idea how to pronounce it, let
Right.
alone
Right.
know what it means.
Well, what we do, we work on reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and
Okay.
reading comes first. So
Okay.
we say things, so our hope is that when we model things and we say them first, that they pick up the correct pronunciation in the first place, so there's not much of a question. We usually don't present written things unless we've spoken them first.
Okay.
Or a lot of cognates. It uses a lot of cognates, words that are similar in both languages. Do you have any question?
How many students?
Oh, I don't even know.
I have, well, in 3 Spanish 1 classes, I have 27 in one, 30 in one, and 22 in one, so very large classes.
Very large classes.
For freshmen,
79.
yeah.
Wow.
That's
So
great.
we must have about 180 or
Wow.
so students.
That's great.
200, I don't know. That's a good question.
That's enough for all Spanish.
You know, the German program has like an exchange that they do. Do you folks have anything like that?
We don't. The kids would like that.
Yeah.
but I don't know what's available for that.
Oh, okay.
The German program has been, I mean, that particular exchange has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I host a German student every year.
Yeah.
I don't know German.
It would be wonderful to be
Right,
able to
and we talk
provide
about
that.
We talk about those big picture things because
Yeah.
we'd love to do a trip, we'd love to do all of that. And we are doing so much more cultural
Right, we do a lot of culture.
cultural lessons and cultural learning.
So we do a lot of our reading on cultural topics.
I know the German program, we found a sister school,
Yeah.
and that was some of Welsrode, with Finding
Right.
Welsrode, and then we did an exchange that way. Do you correspond with any schools?
I'm actually, we don't yet, but I've been, one of the things we're trying to do is have them use language outside of the classroom, and Twitter's been a really easy way for them to do that. So I'm trying to, one of the things I'm going to build on this year is to have them connect with Spanish speakers over Twitter and possibly communicate that way. It's something so small that they don't feel intimidated by. They can, you know, I had a student tweet me this weekend saying, go state in Spanish, so, you know, that was
Good.
just in Spanish. And he even said Cyclone Nation in Spanish, and I was so impressed. That was just them, you know, wanting to reach out, wanting to use language outside of the classroom on
That's
their
cool.
own.
Well, maybe our visitor coming later this month will possibly provide a nice
weeks.
Yeah, that would be-
exchange. if
I
that-
know that that's basically some of how that program started with German, is just by happenstance.
Yeah.
So maybe be on the lookout
That'd be
for
really,
that.
that'd be a nice thing for the
Yeah, it would
students,
be.
wouldn't it? That'd be great.
As someone who sat in on your classroom last spring for one period, and I've never taken Spanish, it was an interesting period to sit in on and observe the teaching and the interaction with the students, so.
Well, we
I
definitely.
knew very little of what she was talking, other than when I got in trouble during class, and she called me by name. So, I knew it was my name she was calling, and I knew I'd done something wrong, but otherwise, it was a very interesting session to observe.
I think what we've seen in the last decade globally is this, you know, no matter what industry you're in, there's this big push towards, you know, working across, obviously, nations and between nations, and this is this is something that I never took, and I greatly regret it, because even in my job working with trees, we work many times with contractors or other folks that are native speakers of that language, and I have no idea, and I'm lost. And going forward, I think that if we can offer a strong program, that's going to give our students a big opportunity to.
And here's another opportunity for the public schools to offer something that could be acquired and become proficient at before you go to the college level.
yeah.
It wouldn't necessarily have to be a college course.
My stepson took it in high school, and then he took it in college, but he said the street language is altogether different than what he learned in college.
Can be.
But that's more,
Just like
it's not Spanish, it's more, I'd say Mexican,
Yeah.
maybe?
Possibly.
It's the same when you host a German student. That's always the
Yeah.
fun with the slang,
Yeah.
is this.
Well, and that's why using authentic resources, we hope that they get
Yeah.
exposed to more than just the textbook
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank
My
you very
background was
much.
a Spanish teacher, and they're jumping into the things that I was doing, and never more excited and proud when I had kids in small groups reading independently and really able to, dive through one of the books that you guys are using and feel that success and just the pride that they had of being able to do that. So hats off to you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Agenda item 24, peanut-free history. If you remember, on August 10th, I asked that we have a history of the banning of peanuts and peanut products in our district. So, Dr. Cox.
So Mrs. O'Brien did some digging and found a folder from 2008 that there'd been discussion, and the board acted to allow peanut products in schools and directed administration to develop individual plans with families and students with nut allergies. Over the course of time, then the high school, the middle school, and Washington became nut-free, and Lincoln did not. And the concession stands have been peanut-free, nut-free for many years, going back approximately to this same time frame of 2008. I did some quick searching of school districts across the state of Iowa just to see how are others dealing with it. They do everything from no policy, it's just, the way it was when we grew up, to completely nut-free in the district. And then in between, there are some districts that just create in the cafeteria certain tables where only hot lunch can be eaten, and they're sanitized and wiped down continually, and that's the space for the students with peanut and other nut allergies to at least have a place in their cafeteria to eat that is going to be a safe space for them. The downside on that, as I was reading different commentary on websites, is that it sets up kind of a two-class system of there's the one place where if you happen to have this allergy, you have to eat, where all the other kids can choose any other place to go. And so I asked our nurse to weigh in on this. She provided her recommendation, which is that she would recommend all of our buildings be nut-free, so that any child who comes to school just experiences an environment where they don't have to worry, could they be exposed to something that potentially could be life-threatening. She had the numbers in there as well about the students that we have currently who have EpiPens that they have to carry, which means a physician has decided that their allergy is severe enough that if they don't have this, something very catastrophic could happen. So the recommendation for tonight,
Excuse me, how many,
Yeah.
how many students was involved in that?
3 per
I think it's
building.
3 per building.
3 per building?
Yeah.
6 that have EpiPens
Okay.
total.
Now, I don't know that much about it, but does it, is it transferred through the air? Do they have to make contact with the peanut? Do they have to eat the peanut? Or
It depends.
Depends, okay.
Yeah, the sensitivity level varies, and so for some, it has to be actually touching it. With others, it can be exposure through the air.
Through the air. Well, that makes sense then to stay peanut-free, I would think.
Well, and I've seen 2 different articles come out from 2 different resources too that have said, some new medical research that is coming forward, and I'm not the doctor that's
Right.
instructing anybody to do this, but that if children are suspected or confirmed that they have a nut allergy, that exposure in small pieces
them
or
get over it.
steps, it helps them build up an immunity to it. Now, it seems as though these studies have been pretty comprehensive, but, that isn't our position to make that declaration on behalf of these students. I also called a couple of districts nearby because I wanted to know how are they handling this and what are they doing. And so I happened to get a hold of Waverly and Mason City. I tried to get New Hampton as well, but I wasn't able to. But in both cases, they said that they do allow peanut butter and nut products to be brought from home. Their kitchens are nut-free, so nothing will be in the kitchen so that the children that are buying a hot lunch can be assured that that food is going to be safe for them. In Waverly, they had a designated table or tables for those children that they were careful to sanitize. As Dr. Cox had mentioned, he's seen, throughout the state. Mason City had an interesting idea, and that was that at the elementary level, those schools are nut-free. And at middle school and high school, as the students are older and learning to live with their allergy and learning to know what they can have and can't have, that they have a little bit more freedom, that those schools are not peanut-free or nut-free, including their concession stands. And yet they did have tables that were assigned for students that were bringing cold lunches from home. So it wasn't just tables for anybody with peanut butter, it was or allergies. It was tables for anybody bringing cold lunches, which I thought was a little different. I had not heard that before. So I just wanted to report on what I had heard when I talked to some of the other schools. But I get this sense, I just don't know. If you say we're peanut-free, is it a false sense of security to parents? And, is that a lawsuit just waiting to happen, too? Because you can't, I believe we've got 1,500 and some kids, and the odds are that somebody's going to forget. I know, I'll admit, as a parent, I forgot and sent my daughter with cranberries and nuts, like a trail mix thing. And, Mom, you can't do that. Oh, forgot. It happens. And so it's a false sense of security, I think, for parents. But, our intent is that we do want to keep kids safe. But do you ban peanuts and nut products for 1,500 students plus staff?
I see we've got 3 in Lincoln, which is currently not nut-free, correct?
Correct.
And we've got 3 that are there. We've never had an incident, I assume, that's been, have we had any severe incidents or reports of any incidents that you're aware of?
No, I've only been here 2 years.
2
but-
years' time, but,
Lincoln is not nut-free, you said?
No.
But
Oh.
was the 3 there before the transition and the grade changes? or-
there's 3 currently, it says today, and today they could.
Currently,
But with
yeah,
the grade
so-
alike, I see with,
Oh.
And there's 3 at Washington, so without knowing the exact grade levels, the odds are there probably were 3 last year in each building.
Yeah, probably. Don't know. Yeah.
So what I had
Wait.
seen,
There were, okay.
what I had seen,
I knew of one.
I
Who?
don't know for sure, but I know that we did have students with.
Yeah, odds are that there were probably, it was the same last year.
this is something that hits really close to home, because my kid loves nothing more than peanut butter on a tortilla rolled up for lunch. And,
Sounds good.
And, that's something that, he will beg to take, and is not allowed at this time. But, so there's a balance between being respectful of needs of some individual students, but also the common, good or want of the student body as well. What I had seen in the last legislature, or legislative session, was an expansion or easing of the restrictions, or making it easier for school staff to administer epinephrine. And I wondered if that factored into this decision as well. Are we able to arm our staff or make it more readily available in our buildings to provide another layer or level of protection that would ease some concerns of parents or students that have it. That's a question I would like to look at or answered, I guess, if it's feasible to do so. I don't know the cost associated with that and the liabilities for administering and.
Didn't
Another
that
question.
pass at the
It did.
legislature?
It
Yeah.
did pass, yeah.
So I think that part of that was training for
Yep.
staff, wasn't it?
Training, and then, yeah, being able to, because I think in the past, there was some restrictions on which staff could or could not, and, you know, how that was able to be administered in the school buildings, so. That conversation I would like to see, I guess, and then maybe pulling in the parents of those that are affected. You know, my understanding is that this general policy developed from one particular family years ago that had really strong feelings on it, and we accommodated that, and that family is no longer in our district. So I would be curious the thoughts or feelings of the families that this would most impact, and if they have strong feelings one way or another on that. So if all of the students that are the most affected by this, the families say, no, we get it, you know, we're okay with it, then simple solution in my opinion. If not, then the discussion goes a little deeper. So.
Couple of
Question
things.
I'd like to ask is, do we have, I know I see more and more of them as adults, is there students that are lactose intolerant too?
I think we
What do we
have
do for
one,
them?
or we
We
did
do
have
anything?
one.
That's not life-threatening.
No, the
That's
thing
not
with
like- that's
you can
not
take a
as
pill
threatening?
for
Okay.
lactose intolerance. I mean,
But
that's
we-
not a big thing. This
Don't we
is
have
severe. This-
someone
Okay.
Yeah, this
who's
is an
allergic
emergency
to
room
milk?
call here
Yeah.
when this happens.
And I know my
Not
dentist, he
lactose
can't
intolerant,
eat
but allergic to milk.
breading on the chicken and stuff like, I thought he was
think we do.
vegetarian for a while at Kiwanis, because he don't eat, all he eats is salads. I said, are you vegetarian? He said, no, I can't eat the stuff that's in pizza crusts or in
thing about
breading
it-
and stuff like that. And I just
The
wanted.
thing about a
to-
peanut allergy and a bee sting is it goes to your airway.
Okay, is that
and
what
it
it
closes
does?
up your
Chokes you?
airway. So that's the difference between that and a lot of different food allergies. These are severe allergic reactions. There isn't, the time is of the essence. They can be very severe. But with that being said, I have mixed feelings on this too, because Lorraine, what you said is correct. At the middle school to high school level, these kids usually have had to deal with this their entire lives. They are usually responsible enough to know, and giving them a false sense might not be the best service we could give them either.
I had a couple of thoughts that I don't like the idea of having separate tables for students who have allergies to peanuts. To me, that'd be like telling everybody over 5'9" they need to sit at a certain table because you are what you are. I don't like that. I tend to agree that once you get to that high school level and you're gonna get your school permit and a driver's license, you know, you're gonna get gas, you're gonna go into a convenience store, you're gonna go into grocery stores, whatever. But then again, I'm not the medical person. The one thing I was telling Dr. Cox earlier today about was, I was at a birthday party over the weekend for a high school student family that I know, and he has a brother in middle school and a brother in elementary, and 'tis the season to be having sales for fundraisers in all of our buildings, and lo and behold, they all three come out with their fundraiser packet for Scott to take a look at and see if he wanted to buy, and every one of them was selling peanuts. And I looked at it and I said, how can you sell peanuts in a school fundraiser? We're peanut free. But
We're not anti-peanut.
we're not
We're just-
But then I thought, okay, they don't open them in school.
Correct.
They're just
Packaged.
delivered and then dispersed from school. But I found that interesting that we're peanut free, but we're selling peanuts. And actually, that's the only thing I bought from all three of them was the peanut products. But
There's a special meal for that, didn't he?
the one thing, Jason,
They deal with the nurse.
you and I are on the board policy committee now, so if this goes to board policy committee for review, we can further,
Yeah, is that what the recommendation?
Well, there is no board policy on this. The board directed the administration in 2008 to come up with their own procedures for how they would handle it.
And I'm still of the opinion, I think that, I don't see why we'd need to ban it at Sportsman's Park and Comet
Comet
Field.
Field.
But
My only
again,
guess is-
that needs, I'd like some information from the nurse, but
My only guess is that if it's present in the concession stand, then it eliminates kids who have severe allergies from working.
working in the concession stand.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was about all I could
It's a
come
small
up with.
number anyhow that's
Because
working in there.
when I go to
But then
out
again,
of
that would be
town,
any different than, I'm sorry.
when I go to out of town baseball games, I can buy a Snickers out of the refrigerator everywhere but here.
I'd like to hear a lot more parent support or communication. I mean, I see us posted on the Facebook pages. I hope that it gets a lot of comments or discussion.
And for the TV audience, there are no parents here to discuss this policy at 10 after 8 on Monday, September 14th.
And I didn't hear from anyone via email or social media since it was announced last Wednesday it was going to be on the agenda.
I saw one comment.
Yeah.
I saw one comment, and it was confused. It was a confusing comment because they were saying, we want to have peanut butter in our schools. My son is taking peanut butter to school. Well, shouldn't be.
Is there anybody that filed a complaint about where we don't have peanuts?
Just
Oh,
in
I've
my-
heard plenty of complaint.
Yeah,
As
I
Robin,
Really?
yes, as Robin and I have been engaged in this whole food service thing,
Yeah.
I've heard more people come forward, as you're in the schools, students, teachers, please bring back peanut butter,
I realize how-
nuts. It's a healthy
And-
protein option, and honestly, it's just so stable. You send a kid with a peanut butter sandwich or peanut butter on an apple, that's a whole lot healthier than a ham sandwich that doesn't have an ice pack for 4 hours,
And
Yeah.
I do like the concept that our kitchens could be potentially that, but it allows the opportunity to bring cold lunch at whatever age to do that. That's somewhat of a concession, I think, that there is a risk, like you see, no matter what product you buy, on the label it says maybe manufactured in a plant that may contain peanuts or whatever. So working to keep our kitchens free of the product, but allowing the implementation of that might be something to be looked at as well, so.
So, Dr. Cox, you have a recommendation, yes?
I have a recommendation. It doesn't sound like it matches the desire of the board, but it's to add this to the September 28th board meeting so that we have at least 2 more weeks for parents to come forward, for more information to be gathered. And the recommendation right now is that you would implement a policy banning nut products from all Charles City Community School District buildings.
Well, if we just took out the word banning and said regarding a policy on nut products,
Sure?
we
that-
could put, doesn't mean that what we come up with in 2 weeks doesn't include banning.
Correct. It still gives 2 more weeks for
It gives
people
2
to
more
weigh
weeks for
in.
input.
Either way,
Either
I'll
way.
be talking with conference superintendents on Wednesday about this.
Okay.
that sounds good.
Maybe we can call some of the food service companies we've been in contact to, since they've had some exposure to different schools, and
Yeah.
ask their,
And instead of, I would like us to take a more proactive approach with the parents on this, instead of sitting back and hoping that they comment on things, really work to get their comments, and if that involves sending notes home in Friday folders, or however we reach
well, there's only,
older students,
12.
families, there's not, and even if it does go to the level of specifically addressing this with these
Considering how
12
many-
families, then.
how many doors
12
you've knocked on in the last month? I think 12
Yeah,
would probably not be too many.
yeah, sure.
Well, it's 12 children. We don't know because we
families.
we haven't been told names. We don't know if they're 12 families or 12, less than 12 families, because we don't know that information yet. So,
Like I said, if we come back and those 12 individuals, parents, feel that, no, these are acceptable terms, then maybe that will help us, guide us in development of a policy.
is there a motion?
Motion to add an action item on September 28th board meeting regarding a policy on nut products.
I'll
Second.
second it. I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to add an action item on the September 28th board meeting regarding a policy on nut products. Any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Maycumber.
Yes.
Winteringer,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes. Motion carried 5-0.
Would you like to, you wanted it before the financial report, right?
Yeah,
So this is
26D.
26E, the
Wells Fargo equipment lease.
D.
Yep. So Terry handed me some documentation prior to the meeting about this one. Previously, we had agreed to lease 2 school buses. You explain what came up with that?
we received the lease documents from Wells Fargo, who is the lease company for school bus sales. The company we're going to be buying the propane buses from. And they sent like a 15-page, it's a lot of paperwork. Not that that's the problem. The problem really is that one of those requires a attorney's opinion on the tax exempt status of the lease. And so I contacted our attorney to get that opinion, and she had a couple suggestions for the lease, and really thought...
That you can't repeat in public?
No, it wasn't that
Okay.
bad. She just suggested, and after thinking it through a little bit more, we could really, instead of leasing the buses through Wells Fargo, we could really just advance the Buildings and Grounds Department some money so they can purchase the 2 propane buses, and then in the following 2 years, when we give them their allocation for Buildings and Grounds, we would take out the lease payment that would have been intended that year to pay ourselves back for, because our cash flow balance in the sales tax PEPAL has been positive and will be positive for the 3 years that we would have been leasing. So I guess the recommendation is that we purchase these buses and cancel the lease agreement for them.
We're just financing ourselves,
Right.
which makes a lot more sense now that we look at this and that you're comfortable with it, in my opinion. We're not spending any more or less than we would have.
Right.
We're actually spending less.
We're spending less because we would not be paying $5,000 in interest and $5,000 for our legal opinion.
They gotta get their money somewhere.
So, it would be less to do it this way, and it certainly would be doable.
Okay.
And there's plenty of cash in that account to
Right.
advance
Right,
this lease, as you were talking about.
right.
Everything was good with Jerry on this?
I tried to call Jerry and I tried to contact him. I wasn't able to touch base with him. But I'm assuming if he
It's the
can
same.
get his buses,
He'll be happy.
he'll be happy, and, we'll figure out the financing part of it for them.
I think it made sense to me.
So your recommendation for a motion at this time would be?
To cancel the lease agreement with Wells Fargo and purchase the buses.
There's no penalty for canceling the lease?
And I talked to school bus sales, and they are totally fine whether the check comes from us or from Wells Fargo.
Okay. As they get their money, they don't
The
care.
buses have been ordered.
They're here.
And we have
Oh, they're
I
here.
thought
Yeah.
it looked like they were
We just need
maybe
to
sitting.
pay for them.
I thought maybe it looked like we had a couple shiny buses.
Yeah.
So
they
really,
look
for Jerry,
good.
there's no issue. The bus is
The
here.
bus is
Right,
here.
It's Terry's.
Yeah, it's just the accounting.
Terry's.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve as Terry's recommended.
Is there a
Seconded.
second? It's been moved and seconded to approve the motion, the recommendation from Terry O'Brien that we cancel the Wells Fargo equipment lease for the new buses and just pay for them with available cash. Any further discussion? Roll call vote?
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Winteringer?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Financial report.
You have your copies of the financial report. I'm not going to go through them. Next month, you'll get your first financial report that actually shows the fiscal year 15-16 as compared to anticipated, and we'll do a lot more analysis. But for right now, you have the bank reconciliations and comparison of our cash balance.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the financial report as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the financial report for August 2015 as presented. Any questions or comments? Anything from the public? Hearing none, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Winteringer?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 26, consideration of consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Winteringer?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 27, important upcoming dates. Dr. Cox.
Well, 2 weeks from tonight, you will meet the Argentine Exchange Administrator. Graciela Oiquin is her name, and she will be here for approximately 3 weeks. 2 weeks from today is September 28th. On that date and the following date, the 29th, there's no school for students. We have 2 full days of professional learning, and the secondary will be engaged in project-based learning training. And on one of those 2 dates, our elementary staff is here. The other day, they're not because they came August 21st, and they will be engaged with some math work. Got a board meeting that night, board governance workshop, 5:30 p.m. on October the 5th. This is something that's being sponsored by Mason City. They have, if it's not Lisa Bartuzik herself coming up from the Iowa Association of School Boards, they have someone coming up to do a training. Quite a few new board members in Mason City, and so they've asked us to join them. We've got veteran board members. Clear Lake will be there, and I'm not sure which other districts will be attending, but if you can attend on October 5th, 5:30, it's over at the Clear Lake AEA office.
Get credit for better boardsmanship.
You will get credit. We're going to start in on the 15-16.
That's
How
an
many
ongoing
points?
thing every year.
See,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why you should have
Continuing
delegate.
ed every
You
year.
could-
Continuing ed.
Huh?
You would have gotten points as the delegate.
And homecoming week is October 5th, not too far away. Conference is the 12th, so school year is off and running.
Okay.
It is 8:24, and we will adjourn.